Well, hello again, everyone. Today here on the bench, Yaesu FT101ZD. And if you notice, this is the model that does not have the AM/FM board in it. Now, they made several flavors of this radio, MK1 through MK4. And this is the one that does not have the AM/FM. Now, the owner of this radio drove all the way down to Daytona Handfest and picked this radio up. He saw Yaesu 101ZD and just, got to have that and bought it home. Then he realized that it did not have AM/FM. So he decided to go ahead and use it like it is. He went on to sideband, and everyone telling them, he was off frequency and what was going on. So he brought the radio over to me to have a look at, and I found several little problems with it. But one of the main concerns on this video is that I want to show you the VFO problem. Now, this radio would go off frequency and the VFO would still work, and then it would also would start counting random numbers. Sometimes if you're on 20 meters, if one mixer starts going crazy, you'll get like a 2.8 megahertz display. And then if the other mixer, gets disconnected, it'll go up to 90 megahertz. The radio will also stop transmitting and receiving. If the display quits and the radio transmit and receive, then it's just in the display. But one of the problems with these radios is the VFO itself. So we'll look at the fault, and we'll tear out the VFO and show how to fix it. Will be a real simple fix. Not a lot to it, so sit back and enjoy. But I think we can already see one of the problems that this radio is having without even getting into it further. And the reason why I want to go ahead and show you this, because it does not do it every time. We're on 20 meters, and if you look at the display, you can see the display is showing 98 megahertz, and it's counting and moving around is not stable. But as you can see, the radio is not receiving at the moment because it's all over the place. We go down here and we'll play with these buttons. And there we are, 14.246. Radio wants to keep keying up for me. So one item of concern on this 101ZD is the VFO switch. Now, those contacts can get dirty, and that was, cause a problem with the VFO going out, and make it start, the frequency kind of start throwing random numbers up and lose transmit and receive capabilities. Well, after cleaning the switch and playing around with it and running the radio off and on for a while, the problem came back. So it seems like it's not in the switches still. So it sounds like to me that we know it's not a display issue. So if it's a display issue, the radio would receive and transmit. In this case, when it goes out and starts acting up, it's just like hitting one of the other buttons, it automatically goes to 91 megahertz. You lose transmit and receive because there's no external frequency here. But since it's still doing it at random, it looks like a problem may be in our VFO. So I guess what we need to do is hook the scope to it and let it sit down and run and just check and see if we see anything going on, or see if our signal from our VFO is it's dropping down, you know. It's got to put out a certain amount of signal for it to keep working, but you know, chances are could be either failing component or bad solder connections inside this VFO. I did notice a while ago while I was sitting here listening to it, I could actually hear people talking. Even with no antenna, I'm directly on the dummy load. Well, I think at this time we're going to go ahead and put the scope probe on it, look at that signal coming out of the VFO and see if it changes. Well, as you can see, we're on 20 meters still, and our display is showing 2.630 megahertz. No receive on the radio, and I've got the scope probe coupled to the output of the VFO. The cable comes out the back, goes down here to a little board behind the transmit and receive RIT control. So let's get a look at the scope and see what's going on with the scope. As you can see, we do have a signal on the scope, and if we look at the counter that's on the scope, we're at about 370, 80, 350, just changing back and forth hertz. And where we should be at is megahertz. We should be from 5 to 5.0 megahertz. So this is telling me that the problem is most likely inside the VFO. So I think what we're going to do now is go ahead and pull this VFO out, and we need to check the circuit board for solder joints, cracks around them, or you know, just poor solder joints, and we'll take a look at this. We'll do this by removing these 4 screws. We'll pull the VFO out. There's a plug in the back, we can unplug it, and it's a 4-terminal plug, and that way we can go ahead and just pull this out. And we'll take the metal cover off of it and have a look at it. So again, I removed the 4 screws, and we'll notice that the VFO will slide out just a little bit. Now we should be able to get here behind it. And there's a plug here that we should be able to disconnect. It's a little bit tricky to get to. Always make sure that your power's disconnected when you're doing this. You don't want to short nothing out. Since this is a little bit tricky to get to, we'll just use a flat blade screwdriver. You can work this plug right out. Now here, there's going to be a ground wire in here. Sitting right here. I know it's hard for y'all to see this, but it's hard to get the camera in here and do the work also. So we're going to remove the screw from the ground wire. Reach in here with the needle nose and see if I can get this screw out of that ring terminal. Now it doesn't want to come. As always, it falls out of the ring terminal. So there's that screw out of the way. Now you're going to have a couple of pilot lights up here that's soldered to this main board. You'll see them here and here. We'll just slide them out of the holders. Pull them out of the way. There's another ground wire here. Hoping y'all can see this. Yeah. that one out of the way. Alright, let's go ahead and move the radio and reposition the camera. So what we're going to do now is loosen these two screws. We'll have to take them completely out. You get a different screwdriver. Now we'll remove these two completely from the back. Now we should be able to pull this cover right off. Be very careful with this gasket here, it's easy to crack. Probably best to go ahead and get it out of the way so we don't crack it. She's on there a little tight. There it goes. And there's all VFO. So let me reposition the camera and we'll get a good look at it. Now we'll go ahead and remove these 4 screws holding the VFO board in. Okay. And be very careful because you don't want to break these wires or terminals loose from the board. Just give it a little rock back. And you should be able to fold this right up. You can see a couple of solder joints right there in the middle of the screen. A little bit questionable. Alright, now look at this one in the middle of the screen. You see there's a little puddle around the lead sticking out and there's a ball on the top of it. And if you look right at the pin, you see a crack all the way around the solder joint. So that one's, very questionable. I'm doing this with the handheld, so it's a little shaky, I'm sorry. I'm using a USB cam just to, as an inspection camera. See that solder joint there is real dull. In fact, most of them are dull. Very little solder on some of the connections. You see that one right there in the center of the screen is starting to crack on one side. Yep, so I think it's best to go ahead and remove a lot of this solder and resolder these connections, especially that one. That one there is really really stand out. You can see the flux that's on it around the pin. So we'll go ahead and do that. Get those sucked off and resoldered. Alright, what we're going to do now is go ahead and take our pasty soldering tool and try to remove some of this solder that's not looking too good. We ain't got to worry about no components falling out, because everything's pretty much glued in place on top. I don't like soldering on top of old solder. Alright. Then we can go back and resolder all these. Pretty much look happy with that. There's all soldered up. Good fillets around the pins. I do see one more. Sorry about my arm getting in the way, but this is real life. I'm not worried about putting no flux on the board. Plenty of flux in that solder. Alright, now we'll get the board mounted back in there, and we'll get the VFO back in and see what we have. Alright, we have the VFO reinstalled. I do not have it bolted in place because we're not sure if that's going to fix the problem or not. I'm pretty sure that this problem is in the VFO, but it could also be voltages going to it. Now we got to remember how old this radio is. So let's go ahead and flip it on. We're on 20 meter band still and see what comes up on the display. And she automatically went to 14 megahertz. We'll just have to leave it on and see if it gets stable. That's the thing I'm concerned about. I got this on PTO. I got the delay and everything cut down. I'm still hearing the relay keying off, you know, in and out like it's in Mark's position. And we're probably going to have to take a look at that too. And there we go. As you can see now, our signal looks a lot better than what it did before. And I'll run through the VFO just a little bit. And as you can see, it's now tracking with no problem and good strong VFO signal. And all it took was just a few solder connections that needed to be freshened up.
Radio, the station with Germany radio only. Bonsoir Nicolas, Fox 5 Tango Golf Radio, 4
Okay, well that'll wrap it up. I hope you find this little tip on the Yaesu 101ZD VFO. You know, just little things like this keeps the soul gear up and running. I did have a problem with the Mark's controlled radio was kicking in and out. Even if you unplug the microphone, it's just like it was sensitive. All that was just cleaned some controls and took care of that. Anyway, you know, as always, if you like the video, you can let me know by giving me a thumbs up, leaving comments down below, and be sure to click the show more tab for more links to the website and contact information. Anyway, we thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.